everybody, I'm going to do a Heresy Hump Day today. I haven't done one in years, and I thought that I'd like to, once in a while, bring back that part of the channel. I love doing the Musty Wargamers, and this is something that I kind of did before that, but I thought this format I did still enjoy, and it's just slightly different, and I thought I would once in a while throw in a Heresy Hump Day again. And so for those of you that are new to the channel, you'd have to be around a while if you remember these, but essentially what I will do is usually talk a little bit about what I'm painting, a little bit of gaming. I usually have a sponsored drink, similar to, it's where the Musty drink actually came from originally, and then this one doesn't have a name, but it's kind of like a Musty drink, and essentially I'll usually do a couple of topics, and they're not always wargaming, but there usually is a wargaming centric one. So today the topics are going to be that sort of magical game where everything comes together and encompasses all of your efforts and keeps your attention for years. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then the next one, I'm only going to do 2 today in addition to the update, and the other one is going to be the movie Streets of Fire. And I oftentimes will do music and movie kind of components to the show. So this was a movie that came out in 1984, and I'll talk about that as well. And so to start off, I'll just mention, just as far as gaming, I've been playing exclusively at this point Warhammer Fantasy Battles. I mean, I've been playing a lot of 6th edition, but I've actually started to play the Old World just recently, smaller point games, and I'm really getting into the Old World as well, just sort of the next edition, essentially, of Warhammer Fantasy Battles. I had painted up some bolt action recently, and I am looking to play some bolt action, and so I'll likely be doing that too. I'm still looking forward to playing some other games. Like, I still like the Marvel game, and I'm looking forward to playing that, Star Wars Armada. And so, yeah, like, there's definitely other stuff that I want to play, but I would say the biggest thing is probably Warhammer Fantasy Battles. I've actually played a 500-point game with Orcs and Goblins, and then I've also played a 500-point game of the Beastmen, of course, for Old World. And so, yeah, and so there's that. So what I've been painting recently, I just got away back from vacation, but I am just close to finishing. I have to essentially just do the bases, which is what I'm going to do on the show today. So usually I will, on these, do some sort of like a paint and chat, and so I usually pick something simple where I can talk and exclusively and still have something that I'm not doing, like, it's not requiring my full concentration. And so I have to still varnish these, and I still have to finish the bases. And so, yeah, actually, I probably should just show them like that. But these are my Savage Orcs, and then also I have a Sham in there as well. I can probably zoom in on this a little bit to show this a little better. But yeah, so they've got yellow war paint. I'm thinking about doing half yellow and half white. So the next batch, I'm thinking about doing some white war paint as well, and just kind of mix it up a bit. But I'm actually pretty happy with the way they came out. Believe it or not, well, I guess I've painted 40k orcs, but for fantasy, I've only really painted goblins. And so, yeah, so these are sort of like my test for my orc skin that I'll be doing for all my orcs going forward. So, yeah. Actually, I'll just show the shaman as well. Got to figure out my lighting here to do this show. Yep, I think he came out pretty good. Magic is pretty powerful in Old World, pretty necessary. So you want to have lots of wizards. So that is what I'm painting at the moment. I'm gonna do another group just like this, another 10. This was actually, I guess, I guess it was, yeah, this was 11 because I did the shaman. I'm just going to do another 10 of these guys, and then I think I'm just going to leave it at that and then do some black orcs. And I'd show these on a video where I showed the orcs that my orcs and goblins army and stuff that I need to do. Reason why I'm not going to just power through and do all 39, 40 that I have is that with the frenzy and basically I do believe that with like having lots of goblins painted and now painting frenzied savage orcs with the impetuous rule and the frenzy that's involved, particularly the impetuous, I'm going to need some black orcs to kind of keep things in line. I'm going to talk a little bit about this in the discussion today and kind of work that into the discussion, but it is actually affecting my choice of painting the gaming, which is an interesting thing for me. The fact I almost feel like I'm not a tournament player, and so I want to talk a little bit about that later. But I am needing to paint up some of the stuff that I've already chosen to paint, including my army, but I'm needing to do some a little faster for gaming purposes. Yeah, and so I'm looking forward to assembling those. I love starting out a project, and I kind of love like the finishing stage. It's not that I don't like the whole journey, but there are certain phases that I like the most, and I find the starting is almost like that magical step. And then once I start to put the paint on and I realize how much I have to do, I'm like, ugh. And then once I start to see it come together, I actually really start to enjoy it. One of the things that'll be really cool is having these guys on the side of the table when I'm painting the other ones, so it's kind of inspiring. I like that to help. So there is a sponsored drink today, and it's not a real fancy one. I am just drinking Moosehead. Moosehead Canadian Lager. I like to have a house beer, just like a house wine or whatever, something that is like an everyday beer or wine. And I'm always in search of the perfect one. For the years, it was Coors Light. And then I jump around a bit. I do like Grasshopper, which is a big rock out here and out west. What did I get? Steam Whistle is pretty good in Toronto. And I got Rolling Rock, which was harkened back to my younger days when I lived out east in the U.S. Recently, when I had this Moosehead, which I've always liked Moosehead, I liked it a little better than Rolling Rock. I've been drinking the Rolling Rock, and then I had the Moosehead, and I was like, you know what, I kind of like this one better. Because a lot of times when you have a lot of things you like, and you have them separated by time, it's really hard. You don't do a taste test. You don't really know which one you like better, right? But I'd had like a 12-pack of the one, and then now it's like, I think I like this better. So, I'm going to start with a gaming discussion. I'm going to let that foam come down on my beer. And I'm going to grab my paint that I'm going to paint the bases with. I'm doing something kind of odd with these guys. I've been painting everything goblin green for all my Warhammer Fantasy. Because all my goblins, I painted this earth color by Game Color. I debated what I was going to do, and I think I know. What I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the tops of the bases of all my orcs this earth color, and then do like a basing effect, like, grass and highlight and wash and do all that stuff. But I'm going to do the edges goblin green, and I'm going to go back and maybe even get one of those markers that they have from Scale or whatever. Like one of those companies has like this marker that you can paint your base goblin green kind of quickly. So I think I'm going to have goblin green edges for my orcs and goblin army, but brown earth, Game Color earth base itself, and that'll be different from my Beastmen army, and that's fine. I kind of really like the goblin green, and in some ways it was like hard for me to not do that, but I think just having the edges and having the brown top will be kind of cool. It'll be kind of a bit different for this army. So I wanted to chat about that magical game, or the game that the holy grail of games. This kind of comes up often on the Musty Show, and I almost felt a little, when I've talked about a topic over the years so much, I almost feel I'm not working too hard to try to think of something, like to come up with a better topic. But I actually truly kind of had some thoughts about this recently, and I thought it was worth maybe bringing up. And even today I kind of added to it a little bit. And I'm interested, for sure, like usual, I'm interested in what other people have to say about this. But a lot of times when people think of like the most magical time of gaming, they oftentimes will think of when they're younger, you know, and part of that may have to do with the allure of being first introduced to something for the first time. And some of it may also be the fact that they had more time and life was just different, you know, at that time. An example that often comes up and would be totally applicable for me too would be many of us played Dungeons and Dragons that are both people that both play historical as well as fantasy gaming. When it comes to wargaming, many of us had a time where we played Dungeons and Dragons, like whether it be in the 70s and the 80s or up until today. It's truly exploded, I understand. You know, I don't play it anymore, but I can identify with, I won't say time wasted, because I actually think it was great times playing D&D when I was younger, but when we had like nothing to do, like after school and on the weekends and sleepovers and hanging out, like when you're really young, like I played D&D when I was really young, like in elementary school, and up and through areas of junior high and high school. And I find that it's hard to compete with the fun, you know, when you have when you're an adult later, to have the same magic of excitement that you experience when you're, let's say, 11, 12, 17, whatever. Not to say you can't, but many of us don't always experience that in gaming again or to the same degree. I don't speak for everyone, but this is just sort of what I hear, the challenge from folks at times. And so whether it be that, or whether it be maybe you played a historical game that you really liked for years. Like I have a friend that has played DBA, the historical game, for many, many years. Like, you know, possibly decades. It could possibly be measured in decades. I know it's been more than a decade, but it could be easily 2 decades. And there are a lot of memories that come with that. There's a lot of camaraderie, you know, like when you have big gaming groups. And so I think people do experience, even within wargaming, a time or a game where they've had a niche really kind of drew the line in the sand as far as their investment of time, like with a game and a community of players. And so there are some folks, you know, that can definitely say that. And with online social groups, I think sometimes folks can even invest in communities that are not local to them, that they feel a part of. You know, like I've seen that happen as well. And that could be the gaming part, and it could also, for wargaming, be the painting part. Like it could be somebody that's just isn't around games, but maybe becomes part of a community that just likes a particular set of miniatures that belongs to a rule system, and then they start to identify with it, like, strongly. So I wonder what the components are oftentimes that make people find something when they have so many other things now in this day and age, find something that fully encompasses their attention. And I bring this up as a matter of attention because I think there are a lot of folks, including myself, that have like hopped around with a lot of different games, and they get really excited, you know, when it either comes out or they get introduced to it, and they start painting it and they start looking into it, and they have the newness of it, zeal. And they may even stay with it for a while, and even over the years, but just kind of pick it up and put it down and pick it up and put it down, and it never captures their attention to the point where they're always thinking of that from a sustained perspective over a long period of time. Like it truly, the changes within the game itself and the things that they do to change, either changing armies or what they do to mix it up, creates enough of variety and interest that they don't need to stop and do other things. Now, by no means, I call it the Holy Grail, and I'm kind of speaking of this as, I think I'm probably giving the impression to the audience here on this, for those that are watching, that this is the better way. Like, like the better way is to have one game, like to have a Holy Grail. And I can't really say that, because everybody's different. A lot of people like to play lots of different rule sets, and it's totally fine to play different things. As I just mentioned in the beginning of the video, I had a few games that I listed there that are things that I'm looking forward to gaming in the near future. But for me, I've been painting the Beastmen, and now I'm painting Orcs and Goblins. And I painted the Goblins in the past, but I've been painting Beastmen for both initially to do Age of Sigmar and then to do Warhammer Fantasy 6th edition. But I've been doing it for a number of years now. And although it hasn't kept in the past my sole attention, it's probably the thing that I've been painting the most since I was painting French Indian War historical. And I still haven't finished my Beastmen. I've painted a lot. I feel like I have a fairly good sizable army to play most point-sized games. I dare to think of a game that I couldn't play. Like, of course, somebody could say 5,000, 10,000. Like, I don't know if I could play those, but I certainly could play a 3,000 or 4,000 point game. And so, like, I haven't counted, but I know I could. I guess as I have invested in this time, and as I've really enjoyed playing 6th edition Warhammer Fantasy Battle, and as I've then thought to what else I could do within Chaos, because I've actually picked up some Daemons and some Mortal Chaos to be able to round that out. And then now as Old World has come by, and I've really kind of enjoyed what I've read and I've played so far, and now I'm really enjoying thinking about playing and thinking about playing Orcs and Goblins. There seems to be no end to my enthusiasm over the last bit for Warhammer Fantasy Battles and its various forms. And I'm excited about the game itself and thinking about how to play it and how to do well in the game. And I don't think I'm ultra competitive, but I do like to win. Like most of the guys that I play with, they like to try to win. I mean, like the object of the game. Not sacrificing fun, but they like to think about how to change their army, to change their tactics, to what to bring and things to win. It's just part of the fun. We all, not at the expense of having a fun day, because we're all friends, but many of us are collectors too. And so there's this aspect of collecting the army, the fun of it, the painting the army, the playing the game. And we all talk about this, and some of us like certain aspects of it more than others. I never used miniatures seriously for D&D. Like, I have some D&D miniatures that I tried to use a little bit when I was younger, but we basically played what I believe they call theater of the mind, where you basically just imagine everything that's going on. And so if I'm trying to think about how Warhammer Fantasy Battles, for me now, at my age today in gaming, could be as good as D&D in the past, it's hard to compare because they are two different things to some degree. Whereas I was totally invested in my imagination and my time playing D&D as a kid. It was very narrative focused. Having said that, a lot of times in wargaming, people think of narrative as sort of abandoning an investment in your characters or models for the benefit of the narrative. So, my unit gets wiped out, but it was so amazing how it happened. I can imagine it in my mind, and who cares, because whatever, like I had so much fun. Like you hear that a lot. In D&D, people cared if their characters died. So even though I was invested, there was no way in hell that I actually wanted my character to die, you know? And I played at a time when it was dangerous to play D&D. I mean, I don't play now, but I hear people talk about how there are differences over the years as to how easily your character can die or how easy it is to bring them back and things like that. So, in as much as I want to win in a game, I actually don't... It doesn't exclude the appreciation of the narrative. When things happen, I can appreciate the epicness of something happening, even when it happens to my detriment and to my opponent's benefit, for sure. The big thing for me is that I always want to feel like I had a chance in the game. If I did something wrong and it caused a problem, like in the results of how my army performed, I'm totally good with that. If I didn't understand the rules well enough, I'm just learning it, and you know, I made choices in my list and how I did strategy and things like that. Again, totally fine with that. Particularly if I'm enjoying the rules and how they're playing, and I enjoy the overall setting and the miniatures and everything. It's only when I feel as if there's not much I can do with my models to have a fair game. And I know, you know, this has been beaten to death in discussions, but, you know, no game that is asymmetrical is perfectly balanced. You know, we're not playing asymmetrical. We're not playing a symmetrical game. We have to understand that when we choose an army, it may not be, according to the meta, like the number one army out there, and you may have a harder hill to climb than some armies at certain times within the game's history. You know, I'm totally fine with all of that too. So I guess where I go next with this is the reason why I kind of thought of this topic is that I haven't had a time too often where I felt as equally as excited about the gaming as the painting and collecting. Most times one kind of supersedes the other a little bit, depending on the game. Like how much I like the universe and how much I like the miniatures, they're not as balanced. But when you get to a point where you are so jazzed about your collection and your army and your painting and having fun painting as you are with playing games in the universe that they're playing in, then a level of investment to the game, my time, and enjoying that with others, whether they be my close friends or whether they be other folks in the area that are playing, and I'm meeting new people, which Old World has actually presented opportunities to do in my area. Then it really starts to set itself apart from some of the other things that I've done in the past. Because oftentimes I've gotten into games just primarily because I was interested in the setting and the miniatures or the rule set, you know, a combination of them, but not necessarily all of them at once equally. And so I mentioned before that I don't think that necessarily from a narrative perspective that I'll be able to probably, with the way I play and with the way I see the game is designed, have the same exact experience as I would with a role-playing game, because they're just different, and I probably won't... My level of attention towards it and my time spent and my enthusiasm could mirror each other, even though they're two different kind of activities, but they'll probably not be exactly the same, and I'm not the same, because I'm not 11 anymore. I don't think so, but... Sometimes, some days I might almost feel like I am. But, so, that magical game, what causes it? I thought I've tried to touch on a couple of things. I'm interested in what you guys think. I've tried to touch on a couple of things as to why all of a sudden I feel this way, which is really fun. Like, and that's what it comes down to. Like, it might sound like I'm looking at this like just like a philosopher, but like, why do I feel this way? What is the magical game? I'm mainly bringing it up because I thought it was just interesting that when you start to just all of a sudden get that much more excited about something than you have for a long time, and it seems to just press so many buttons, and it causes me to reflect on it. And then even just choices and how I spend my time within the hobby. So, a couple of things that I started to think about today in relation to this, and I have touched on these concepts even today already, is one, narrative versus competitive. And you know, it's a whole nother discussion in of itself that we've talked about a lot. But I think when you think about that magical game for you, that could encompass some of it. You know, like, oftentimes the narrative is the story for most people, and then the role-playing I talked about kind of brushes up against that. The competitive oftentimes is trying to do something, you know, manipulate the system as best as possible to your advantage for victory. And many people like that, and they really enjoy that. The funny thing is, as much as I'm loving my miniatures and I'm loving, like, the universe of, like, Old World and Warhammer Fantasy, like, I don't want to do tournaments, like, I don't want to do, like, official tournaments or anything at this point, but I'm actually really enjoying the gaming side and trying to figure out how to use the army that I really am enjoying in the game that I'm enjoying to its best ability. What makes sense, like trying to figure out what makes it tick. So it makes me almost feel as if the zeal's coming from a little bit of competitive, which is not normal for me. Even when I play games with my friends and, you know, I'm really trying to win whatever, I love those moments when something happens that's kind of surprising, and it adds a narrative flavor. And I love just joking around with friends too, like, you know, just you have, like, somebody that's doing really well, like a particular model, or a particular model that's not doing particularly well, and it starts to create that narrative. And even among the environment of trying to do well, like, I'll start to joke around with friends about what's happening in the game and how, oh, that wizard didn't read up on his spell last night, or, like, you know, we just start joking around, and that adds to the narrative for me. Even though we're trying to be a little competitive and win, we're both trying to win, but we're both still having fun and balancing a little narrative in there. So, is there a component to your Holy Grail that has to do of a game that has to do with a narrative versus a competitive component? Do you feel that you need to be highly engaged in the game from a tactical level and understanding the rules and trying to do some things to cause your brain to think in that way in order to really enjoy it too? I actually, with good games, need a little bit of that to actually, and then it actually reinforces me to go back and paint different things and enjoy painting and how I'm going to use them, like in the game and stuff. Like and then I kind of go to that artistic side and I look at that and I enjoy it. But some of the fuel is for that competition. There was another component to that, collecting versus competitive, or gaming. Collecting versus gaming. I'm going to... Little Legions, Stick of the Dump. He actually put up his Orcs and Goblins army. And I love his Orcs and Goblins army. Like, he did this, you know, and I didn't know he was doing this, but I also was kind of wanting to go for a bit more of a wild, savage army. primarily goblins is what I was hoping to do, but I had my spider riders to do, like I had all like my 40 savage orcs. I was wanting, to add some things to it to have that kind of savage orc more like theme. So how I'm wanting to collect and how I'm wanting to paint is more of like a narrative, because I'm trying to have a visual narrative focus. But then the game drops and I get a chance to read it, and I just noticed that, although you can play savages, they're not really even named in it. Like, you're needing regular boys and just kind of upgrading them. They did some things, and I don't want to make this video about impetuous, the rule, but they did some things that really made, from a gaming perspective, certain units a little less viable, which, that's an old story, with anything, with codexes and stuff. But you have like certain, models that are just basically the same points, but don't have like the impetuous rule, which 50% of the time makes you charge at an opponent, as opposed to 1/6 of the time having something happen, which was animosity in the past, which I think was better. But it sort of makes it takes quite a bit of your generalship out of your hands, particularly if you have like models that are really fast, that are just going to charge over great distances. Like, your enemy can just like lure them out against things you don't want them to go for and stuff. And yeah, like, I appreciate a certain level of the narrative. So if like 1/6 of the time, 1 out of 6 things happens with a unit, and it's to support the narrative of orcs being like squabblers and being orky, I'm totally good with that, but if it's something where I don't really feel like playing the army that I want to play, like let's say all regular goblins with savage orcs, if all of a sudden that's going to mean that my whole army is primarily I'm not going to control it, then I'm probably not going to go that route, unfortunately, just because I have to still want to play the game at a level where I can play against my friends, where we do want to try and have a chance at winning, and so all it means for me is that now I'm still going forward with all my savage orcs, but I'm probably not using all my goblins like in the way that I thought I would. I'll probably add some, but I have black orcs, and I'm doing more of a black orc themed. An army that will likely rely on black orcs to keep them in line at times, just because, and that fits a narrative. It wasn't the kind of list in particular that I was primarily focused on, but now, in order to satisfy my gaming needs and wanting to enjoy gaming, I'm having to alter my collecting and narrative thing, which to many older players, that's kind of sacrilege, or to many narrative focused players, that's kind of a sacrilege thing to do, but then many people would totally understand that. It just depends on where you're coming from. But I certainly need to feel as if I can, because my opponents are certainly trying to maximize their codex, and so if I don't, when I feel like I'm already at kind of a significant disadvantage, then it ends up not being fun for me. So I do think that the collecting part for me is part of that holy grail. Like, I love collecting Warhammer Fantasy Battles. I still do, just as much as I ever have, since doing it. It just changes a little bit, the focus of the collecting. So what do you guys find? Have you guys had a game that you would describe as a little bit of a holy grail period in your life, or a game that's just been that holy grail for you, that suits both the gaming and the painting, and just something that really keeps your attention? And that's the way I sort of define it. For me, it's that thing that when you're not playing, you're actually kind of thinking about at times, like, because you just enjoy it that much, and you're just thinking about a painting project, about what you're going to do with your army, about the next game, about playing a certain kind of other force against another force, or just all of it. And for you, what are the things that makes a game fit that criteria in your experience? Are there really totally different types of games that have had that for you? Like, could there be like a board game that has done that for you, that's kept your attention, and that you like to that degree? A role-playing game, tabletop gaming. Interested in your thoughts. So that's first topic number 1. So topic number 2 is the movie Streets of Fire. Now, this is a movie that came out in 1984, and in 1984 I was 11 years old. I've never owned the movie before until now. I think I might have already showed an image of this, but I've got this. I picked that up at a deep discount. When you're looking for something, it's always more expensive when you have to go find it somewhere that has it. But it just, of course, appeared on a shelf somewhere and it was really cheap. And I just was like, oh my gosh, I was looking for this actually. Now, the movie was good enough that I actually remembered it. And thought about it, and that I wanted to buy this. I will be honest with you, the number one thing that came to mind, because there was stuff that I'd absolutely forgotten about it, because I haven't watched it since 1984, 85, like maybe when it was on HBO in the US when I was young, because I never saw it in the theater. But Willem Dafoe is the thing that is stained on my memory, because it's his opening movie. It's the first movie he was ever in, and his role in that movie and the imagery of his role really stood out. I have a few things that I could say about the movie, but one of the things I had to write some stuff down, because for those of you that are either here because you found this video because of Streets of Fire, or you're new to my channel, I'm not a movie reviewer. I don't consider myself an expert when it comes to film and cinema, although it is a kind of a hobby of mine in some ways, in my own way. And I never remember this guy's name. I had to look it up, but it's directed by the director Walter Hill. While I was watching the movie, I hadn't looked at who the director was or tried to do any research at the time, but I noticed a lot of commonalities with another movie that's a favorite of mine, The Warriors from 1979. So Walter Hill also directed The Warriors. You'll notice that there are a number of different cast members that are not necessarily always the pivotal role in the movie, that they're supportive type roles, but that share roles in both The Warriors and in Streets of Fire, which I thought was very cool, because I love, like I said, I love the Warriors movie. A lot of the feel of the movie, in the way that the movie's shot, and a lot of scenes that are dark, reminded me quite a bit of the Warriors as well. Perhaps like his style of cinematography. The movie on the front of the cover, and this for me might actually be considered initially a bad thing, because I'm not really into musicals, and I wouldn't classify the movie as just a musical. Like, it's not by any means a musical, but they describe it as a rock and roll fable. For sure, music is a huge part of this movie, and it's got great music, great rock and roll music from that time period, and it's a huge bonus for the movie. You know, but again, I don't find it to be like just an outright musical by any means. It's a very action-packed movie. To some degree, like we talk about a lot about nostalgia within the wargaming hobby, and just nostalgia for people that are within my age range, looking back to their youth and just really being into stuff just because it's old and it brings back memories. Yes, like I watched this once when I was 11, and yes, there's like huge nostalgic elements to this, but I find this was one of the more welcoming nostalgic films that I'd seen in quite a while. Like, because a lot of times I watch things that are older and they don't really hold up from like when I watched them from long ago. But this was one that when I was finished watching it, I thought like, I just thoroughly enjoyed my time spent like watching this, and just the vibe that I got from the movie. Yeah, it really does a really great job in that respect. Now, I'll talk just a little bit about some of the actors that were in this. This movie, I'm not even naming everyone, so I apologize like if you have like somebody you really liked in the movie that I'm not bringing up, but I mentioned that it was William Dafoe's debut, and he is a standout role. He's very sinister in this movie, and of course he's got that look, and he can deliver on it to just look like a real psychopath sometimes, and I never forgot him for that reason. I always thought he looked like such a weird psychopath in this movie, and he just did such a great job at it. The little piece of trivia is he's in like head of like a motorcycle gang, and he's wearing these like fisherman waders without any shirt, so like these black leather like overall kind of things. And he had said in an interview that they were made by a designer company. I think it wasn't like I don't really know a lot of the big designers, but I recognize the name he said. It was one of the more famous designers out there. So it's not even like they went and just got like regular ones. Like they were designed by a fashion company for the film. So they're these like shiny black leather looking weird biker kind of costume. Or I shouldn't even say biker, more like it's like a combination of biker and S&M attitude, I think. I'm not sure. But it's just... it really creates an ambiance of the craziness of it. And so he did really well in his first role, I think, in this film, and I just convincing enough that I'd remembered him since I was a little kid playing it. Now, the main protagonist, or like the main hero in the film, is Michael Pear, I think is it. I don't know if I pronounced that correct. It's like but I didn't remember initially who he was, and he does an alright job, like in his character in this film, and he's been in a lot of things. Like I googled him, like on Wikipedia or whatever. He's been in a lot of stuff. One of the movies that he was in that I remembered vividly, also from when I was a kid, was Eddie and the Cruisers, and he was the main character within that. I don't remember much about the film, but I remember seeing it like on cable when I was a kid. He, despite being the main character in the film, I would say the film is not driven by his performance. Like, there's so many things to this. Like, there's the music and the plot, but then there's so many supportive characters that make up and make this movie really successful in my mind. As an action, awesome movie. Now, some other folks that you will recognize: Rick Moranis is in this. Does a great job in his role. He has a very significant role in the film. Bill Paxton has a bit of and this is before he was famous, has a bit of a minor supportive role, I would say. One of my favorite roles within the film is the sort of co-star, compadre, partner to the main character, and played by Amy Madigan. She just screams that period, within the 80s when it came out. She's, plays a strong female role that sort of like a tough, supportive role. And I think she did really, really well at it. I really liked her in this film. And she made the movie by being in it much better in my mind. Gosh, I hate when you can't get to like the base by like underneath the body next to the feet and you're worried about painting other things. Okay. And so, yeah, she did really well. The soundtrack is really quite amazing. And I wouldn't mind buying it, like, just for the soundtrack, honestly. If you look into it, I believe Stevie Nicks wrote some of the songs for this film. There was a lot of consultation within the rock music industry on this soundtrack within the film. There was a lot of involvement. And so if you're kind of a music aficionado and you like that kind of music, the 80s period, late 70s, like rock music and things like that, then you might like this also a lot more just for that reason. So, yeah, I don't know if you guys have seen this movie, but I wanted to do a little bit of a review on it as part of returning and doing a Heresy Hump Day. Typically in the past, I see we're at the 47 mark. When I first started these shows, they were around this time, and sometimes I did do 2 topics, like I'm doing today. I'll be quite honest with you, I was a little nervous, or not nervous, but maybe apprehensive about starting this up again and doing one of these, even though I wanted to. And mainly because I usually have a team now when I'm doing talking on discussions, and I enjoy that quite a bit. But it takes a little bit off of you than just talking straight and being completely responsible for the attention of folks with your content alone. I am currently on number 10 of 11 in just painting the tops of these bases brown. But this is this was the perfect activity for me in order to do this and not make a mistake, because I have done that. I've taken on more challenging things when just kind of having a discussion like this and then just thinking too much and not paying attention to what I'm doing enough. So I think I'm only like halfway through my beer here, but I think for my first Heresy Hump Day in many years, I'm going to call it there. Believe it or not, our Musty Wargamers were in Season 7. Next year will be Season 8. And I did Heresy Hump Day primarily before that. So it kind of shows in some ways just how long it's been since I started them. I believe I did 40 of them. Heresy Hump Days. If I look at my list, so this will either be 40 or 41 or something like that when I put it up. Which is cool. I did try to bring it back more than once. And so you'll see that there's some that are separated by large gaps of time towards the end. But we'll see how this goes. I'm kind of feeling good about potentially doing these again, because I found them fun too. And these are just really something just for fun that people can paint to. And it's a little bit of a way for me to just talk about stuff that I'm interested in, and explore things that I'm interested in and concepts, and share that and have dialogue about it. Even though there are ads on everything, I think, on my YouTube channel, I don't monetize my channel, so I don't know how you can tell that I don't monetize because they still put ads up. That was one of the reasons why I stopped monetizing, is because the ads got out of control. But maybe there's just less of them now. I'm not sure. But yeah, like, hopefully folks like enjoy this like they used to. I had a little bit of a following that watched and participated. And yeah, if you want to see more of these, maybe let me know if you enjoy painting to these. And maybe I'll hopefully I'd like to keep doing them. So hope you guys are having a good week, and I'm going to try to have this out on Hump Day, but many of you who saw it in the past do remember they often came out on Thursdays. Okay, talk to you later, everybody.